I think it's going back to working now. So we are going to look at Cynthia's chart in depth now. So Cynthia is a Pisces Sun. Thanks for hanging with me there on that one. Cynthia is a Pisces Sun, and she is a Gemini Moon with an Aquarius Rising. So when you see Pisces Sun, Gemini Moon, she has mutable Sun, mutable Moon, and those are both things that I love about her. I have a Gemini Moon, so this was really fun to kind of dive into. When we started looking at Cynthia's chart, the first thing that stuck out to me was that 18-degree Aquarius Rising. Like I said, the time is from her mother's memory, and she said 6 a.m. So I believe it. I know people that were born at even times. I was born at 12:15 p.m. evenly. So it's like, I know that those times do exist for people to be born on them. But 18 degrees Aquarius in the Sabian Symbols is represented by a man being unmasked at a masquerade. It's very much about having a mask on or having some sort of facade that you may present to the public, and it could be out of like survival, it could be out of simply entertainment and enjoyment. When we talk about Pisces and Gemini energy being combined in a chart, that's very much the eternal child. So it is the childlike energy of Gemini and the moon sign, which is very much representative of the mother and the relationship to the mother, and then Pisces, which is all knowing, all encompassing, and at the same time, it's so innocent at points, right? And so we I cut through a lot of the YouTube video that I had originally, mostly because the entire first like 5 to 10 minutes is the episode where it's Cynthia's bachelorette party, and they're all dressed up in different dominatrix style outfits and using toys to entertain themselves and each other. So it's very ridiculous but hilarious and a huge part of the Housewives lore and franchise history. And I wanted to point out that the last degrees of Pisces and the last decan of Pisces especially is known as a very sexual degree, and it could be hypersexual from trauma in some cases, or it's a very sexual deacon just because it's like this last bit of the zodiac. And like in French, they call orgasms les petites morts. So it's like this little death every time you have an orgasm. So death and sex are very much connected. And if you're familiar with that process or familiar with the sexual energy that comes with that, then you understand that. But having not only her Saturn, which rules her chart in the last decan of Pisces, but her Venus, Chiron, and Mercury as well in that last part of Pisces is very important, just because that's Cynthia's energy in a nutshell. I did accidentally split these videos on YouTube now, so I'm hoping that YouTube will allow me to piece them back together in an edited form, and I'll just like make it perfect in post editing. But the Sabian Symbols, that's the karmic degree that we're talking about her rising, right? So that 18 degrees of Aquarius, then we go into the 19 degrees of Aquarius, which is represented in the Sabian Symbols by a forest fire finally quenched. So it's all about exuberant feelings that come after struggles. Like we have heard a little bit of Cynthia's childhood story about how they didn't have much growing up and there wasn't a lot of material wealth, right? There's wealth in the form of time together, in the form of closeness due to, you know, this is your family, and that's who you are born into this life. That's who you rock with. That's who, you know, you're with through this soul journey. And it can be very much about finding the will within and the challenge within to rise to the occasion and like meet those challenges and be like, okay, so this part of me is getting tested for this reason, and this is how I'm going to get out of it. So it's very much about overcoming and, you know, not letting yourself, you know, just be this raging, angry, uncontainable fire. It's about finding what really ignites you, yes, but what also soothes you and quenches your thirst. And whether that's a thirst for attention in some cases, knowledge in some cases, or simply love. You know, a lot of Aquarius people, whether they will ever admit it out loud or not, seek love in a very whimsical type way. I think it's really important to note that Cynthia came out recently with a relationship. So I'm going to pull up her map, her astrocartography. So right to the right of her Sun MC line, if you can see that going down through Paris. I wish I had a pointer once again. I'm going to figure out how to do that. But right on the right of her Sun MC line is Amsterdam, which is where her new boyfriend, which is not new boyfriend, but her now public boyfriend is from. And then Paris, right there on her Sun MC line, is very much a place of a lot of success and joy for her. So I think that that's really cool to see that fashion and film, photography, and everything that Paris is really known for, art, is something that is definitely in her astrocartography. So back to the rising sign. I do want to wrap that up just because I know I bounce everywhere when I do these chart readings. This is what it's like sometimes when you get like a recorded reading. I do go all over the place, but when you do the written reports, this does come in the form of a 30 to 40 page written report. So you get so much information, plus you get an Astro Gold generic report. And those are not like reports that I just send and then I'm like, here, that's $175 now. But those are reports that are just like an extra added bonus to what I'm already sending you with my custom, like I said, 30 to 40 page astrological profile. So if you are looking for a way to work with me and you want to invest in knowing thyself a little bit more, my astrological profile and my deep dive readings are my more expensive readings that offer this in-depth look at yourself. So this is what we would cover in those readings. The solution degree to Cynthia's rising is a large white dove bearing a message. So peace is really important in her life, but it's mostly like personal peace, and it's finding that way to deliver messages well. I think you can tell that Cynthia has a way with being empathetic and compassionate to others, and it might be a little bit of a funny method of delivery, or it could just be, you know, her giggling at herself for being inappropriate but nobody catching on, or just like her general, I think her demeanor as well is just so much of somebody that you would really want in your corner. And so it is very empathetic, and at the same time it can be goofy as well, because mutable energy is just goofball energy no matter what. And having your ruling planet, which is Saturn in Pisces, squaring your moon in Gemini is absolutely funny energy, as well as having all that Virgo energy, where the solar eclipse is actually happening on her Uranus in the seventh house in Virgo. So that is happening, like I said, on Friday when Mariah's book comes out. I'm so excited about this one. So many books in my hands. This is my life as a ninth house North Node in Pisces and ninth house Mercury in Pisces and Pisces MC. I have all the ninth house energy. I have books everywhere. But this is very much about being able to kind of like find your group and find your tribe, find your group of people that are going to like support you through it all. And it could just be your family. Like it's not just your family, but you know, so many people kind of look for community in places where it might not be best to look for community. Like sometimes we go through these things where we are isolated, and a lot of Pisces energy. If you have Pisces placements, or if you have 12th house placements at all, you 100% know about needing isolation and alone time in order to heal, in order to nourish yourself, in order to recharge your body, in order to be around people. Like there's just times where you know, like too many social events can be like a lot. And having that Pisces in the first house, and the first house being intercepted with Saturn ruling it, and Saturn being in the first house. Saturn in the first house is very responsible, very mature, very adult-like, and being ruled by Saturn in general Yeah, I'm a Saturn dominant individual, and it can be like you are the leader, choreographer, main star, and also set and catering all at once. You feel very much like you have to do it all. You feel very much like you have to take this on your back and just get it done no matter what. And it all falls on you. And it can be a lot. But when you have Saturn in Pisces, like we're all collectively experiencing with Saturn in Pisces, I think it's actually an energy that can be quite magical. And especially with Saturn being in those last degrees, right? So a lot of things going on in her chart, yet there's the main one, which is, excuse me, the transit of her Saturn return. So this is her second Saturn return. This is her, and it's not quite there yet. Saturn hasn't gotten to the later degrees of Pisces yet. It's still at, I think, 22 degrees. But it isn't exact. I think it's going to be exact in May for her. So I think that's going to be really cool. I feel like that's going to be a big time to shine. Whatever this eclipse brings, the Saturn return will wipe away, cleanse, reform, shape, shift, transition, whatever it needs to do. Pisces is also about this mystic unknown and this collective subconscious. It can be about secrets. It can be about haters. It can be about hidden enemies, hidden arch rivals, hidden people just wishing you ill. But part of Pisces energy is also not living in a state of paranoia. It can be really hard, I think, especially with Saturn and Pisces conjunct Neptune and the North Node as well. And it can be difficult to see through that. So right now, if Cynthia is going through some personal rebranding or some personal, like emotional changes or growth or shifts, or just living the dream and loving it on the journey there, there could just be a myriad of things happening in her life. But the main thing that I think is really cool about her chart, which I was going to get to when I was like, yes, the main thing I noticed is that her sun is at 0 degrees Pisces, which is like living in the best of both worlds, right? So 0 degrees Pisces in the Sabian symbols is actually going to be 30 degrees Aquarius, which is represented by moonlit fields once Babylon are blooming white. This is all about a knowing the past and knowing parts of the past culture and appreciating them, incorporating them, the natural essence of a place or a person. So like her natural essence can very much feel like moonlit fields, and it's a very calming, serene presence. I think if you guys watch the premiere of Real Housewives of Atlanta, this latest season 16, Cynthia looked absolutely amazing. She was dressed in all white for the gathering at Shmia's house, and it was just super beautiful. She looked amazing. And it's very much this ethereal energy. So I love that. And then you get to the truth degree of her sun, and that is a crowded public marketplace. So it's all about like human interchange, bartering, communication, globalization, worldliness. And this is the Aries rule degree. It's 1 degree. So that is Aries rule degree. If you guys aren't familiar with degree theory or you don't think it's real, you can look it up and apply it to your own chart. And I promise you will find some synchronicities there. And go argue with somebody else. I'm not here for that. It can also be about being too busy to really enjoy people, to be like sometimes being too caught up in work or things going on around you that you don't give yourself a chance to breathe and really enjoy life, right? Then the solution degree to Cynthia's sun is going to be 2 degrees Pisces, which is the power degree of Pisces. It is a squirrel hiding from hunters. And it's always about kind of knowing how to survive and get ahead at any cost, and whether you have to hide and, dart around to survive, or you know when to shine. And, there's always a kind of like a lookout for an opportunity to play around and enjoy the sunshine and bask in the glow of life with this degree. So it's very much about celebrating the joys in life and the little things in life, right? Which is something that I think that the Housewives franchise in general helps people do. Water break. But yeah, I think the Housewives in general help so many people just understand that. I don't know. I feel like you can have fun at any age. And I keep talking about how all the different Housewives franchises have meant different things to me. And with the Real Housewives of Atlanta, like they really and truly set the precedent for over the top parties, over the top get togethers. The flaunting of the wealth has like absolutely incredible. Like I remember watching the first seasons with like Kim and Nene. I love their dynamic. I love their friendship. I loved watching all the other women come along. And Cynthia always just stood out to me as this like glowing beacon of so much success and just keeping her spirits high no matter what. And it's like she could be going through a lot and she continues to find ways to laugh. She continues to find ways to share stories, whether it's about other people and she's just in the middle of it, or, she's just caught in a gossip situation. I think it's so funny to watch all the interactions between her and like especially over the seasons. And now that she's back, it's like I'm super excited to watch this one. So just to cover, how much these, like, I know that I cover sports astrology and then I have housewives shows, right? And it's like sometimes people can be like, why don't you cover like authors and politicians and things, like people who have made history? And I'm like, these people who are sharing their every movement and daily lives with us deserve to have that kind of coverage too. They're absolutely fascinating, right? So I'm here to cover like all walks of life, all different people, and I'll get to that. But the housewives absolutely deserve their time because it's like, how often in media or in entertainment in general do we get to see women authentically enjoying each other, not pitted against each other? Sometimes the drama can be a little bit pitting against people, right? I do understand that. And sometimes it gets to be a little bit much like, oh my gosh, why can't these women just all get along? But the majority of the time that I watch The Housewives, it's not to judge them. It's not to be like, oh my gosh, I want everything that they have. Because there's a lot of like honesty and openness with what comes with the spotlight and what comes with cameras and people paying attention to your every move. And it can be a lot if you're going from, being well known in your town or being well known for who you're married to or where you live or being well known in your neighborhood to being well known all over the place and having people like even celebrities. I know that there's been people on Watch What Happens Live, like really famous. I think it was Lady Gaga the other day that was talking about, what was it? Vanderpump Rules. Yeah, I think it was Vanderpump Rules. And she was talking about how she's going to miss the old cast like Sheena. And I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, Lady Gaga watches this too. So it's just funny to me. I've always been nosy. I have a Gemini moon. So, like, hello, I'm always going to be enjoying things that talk about like what people are up to and see what people wear. Not because I'm trying to like get ideas or like copy anybody. I just simply like to know what's in style, what's in fashion. Will I wear the same things all the time, especially like on camera when I'm doing that? Yeah, but like when I go out and get to express myself, it's so fun. So getting to see Cynthia's chart when she has been so heavily involved in fashion. If you guys aren't aware of all the things that this woman has done, I don't know, Google her. That's another famous line from Real Housewives of Atlanta. So, anyways, getting back to the chart, Cynthia's going through her second Saturn return right now. So I feel like it's going to be a lot of success and long overdue success. When you are ruled by Saturn, things come a little bit later in life, and that's okay. That also means that you age like fine wine, which I think is obvious if you look at Cynthia. She is aging so well. I wouldn't even call it aging. It's like when you are able to pull off looks and styles and brands and pivots and different things in life, whether it's her podcast that she does, or whether it's a fashion show, or whether it's her speaking up for something that she believes in. There's so much energy with first house placements. It's like they can start things just like Aries. It's very much Aries energy. However, with her Pisces intercepted like it is, that like coziness and go with the flow energy probably doesn't come until later in life, when that's something that even Jupiter could kick in and help with. So with Jupiter being retrograde in her chart and also in Cancer, Cynthia also has her Jupiter return coming up when Jupiter goes into Cancer, which that's another transit I'm super excited about because, I mean, let's be real, Cancer rising, having Jupiter in Cancer, it's going to be a really fun time. But most importantly, it's going to be a time of a lot of creation, a lot of expansion, a lot of moodiness. A Jupiter ruled or a moon ruled Cancer placement, or excuse me, dear Lord, a moon ruled placement is already a lot. That indicates that it's a Cancer placement, and that indicates that whatever sign the moon is in, which by the way, it changes every 2.5 days, will be the theme of what Jupiter is doing. So if you thought that Jupiter in Gemini has been insane, Jupiter in the moodiest sign of the zodiac, because I'm a Cancer rising, I can say this about Cancers. My chart ruler is in the 11th house and is in Gemini, and I love my Gemini moon so much. It's already moody enough, and then you add in the fact that it's my chart ruler and it's a very pivotal part of my life that everyone around me knows that my moods absolutely fluctuate, but it's like as I get older, I understand how to work with those energies more. I'm not as able to give into those things. I have things to get done every day, and that's why I get up and keep doing them. So I just don't really like make a lot of excuses for myself. And that's also because I'm Saturn dominant. So getting back to Cynthia's chart, because she is Saturn ruled, having that Saturn being ruled by Jupiter, since it is in Pisces, that can definitely feel like things didn't start to get better until after, she was 29. But that could be simply with like health and everything like that. In that clip that we had showed of Cynthia before it got cut off because of copywriting parts and errors, she mentioned or Phaedra was talking about fibroids and making comments about Cynthia's health. And so it's like, I know that there's definitely been health adventures, struggles, challenges, whatever you want to call it, in Cynthia's life. So, having a Saturn return that focuses on that, because when you're 29, that's a 6th house year. If you know about perfection years, and if you don't, it's also in my book if you guys want to check it out. But there is so much about her Saturn being opposite Uranus as well as Pluto, and both of those being retrograde, that is a huge influence on not only her Saturn, but her Venus, Chiron, and Mercury, all in Pisces. So this eclipse season and this nodal axis of Pisces and Virgo, the North Node in Pisces, the South Node in Virgo, is something that is a familiar energy to Cynthia, with that being activated in her 1st and 7th house, with her 7th house being intercepted. And we have mentioned, and you could see on the show, her daughter gives her a lot of crap for her dating life. And she asks her mom if she has high self-esteem, because why would you put up with a man that, doesn't talk to you the right way? And I think it's been a journey for Cynthia, and she's been very open and able to share that journey with people on Real Housewives. and other shows that she's done. And she shares that journey. She shares a lot about her love life and the ups and downs of it. So it's something that you definitely see represented out loud when you watch the show back. And I think it's so fun to go and watch the shows even after I get the charts, especially after I get the charts and see all the moments where you're just like, all right, that's her Mercury. All right, that's her moon. All right, that's her Jupiter retrograde. All right, that's her South Node in Scorpio. Like, there's just so much about her chart that you can see through the highlights, which I cannot play any more of as YouTube has let me know. But you know, having Saturn opposite Uranus and Pluto retrograde, there can be things in relationships that come up after, you know, you're already in it. The retrograde part of Uranus and Pluto, it's transformation and sudden changes, innovation, revolution, but it's retrograde. So it's like it can take a little bit longer to get there. It can take a little bit longer to understand. It can take a little bit longer to have those transformational relationships and understand what they're all about. Since her seventh house is ruled by Leo, absolutely love to see that it's ruled by her sun in the first house, which is really cool since it's at that 0 degrees that I love so much of Pisces. With that 0 degrees sun ruling over her seventh house, with Pisces energy, obviously that's going to be ruled by Jupiter. So that once again goes back to her Cancer retro, or her Jupiter in Cancer station retrograde in the sixth house. That is at 25 degrees Cancer. So I'm going to pull up the description of that real quick. Went way too far. 25 degrees Cancer is representing the Sabian symbols as a leader of men wrapped in an invisible cloak of power. So it's very much about leadership responsibilities and maybe having to be the leader in the home, since that is Jupiter retrograding Cancer. And I feel like that might show up as all the things that she might have had to do on a daily basis as a child and take care of things and nurture herself, or take care of others in the home. Since Cancer does naturally find its home in the fourth house. But with Cancer ruling over the sixth house, that means the moon actually rules over it, because signs can't rule over houses. I say, like, I have a Pisces Mercury, so it just flows out of me. Like, once I start talking astrology, people that have seen me go into the zone, or like have tried to keep up with that me in the zone thing, can be like, Gracey, slow down, speak English, please. But having a moon ruled sixth house means that the moon is one of the most important parts of your physical health. So having your moon in the fourth house in Gemini, your physical health, especially around your lungs, your nervous system, especially around anxiety, and your arms and hands are going to be really important. So it's like she might wash her hands a lot. Having her hands clean, it could be really important. I like having my hands clean, and I'm a Gemini moon, so it's very much like I don't like having things on my hands, or having things that I don't like on my hands. Like, I remember when I had a Moldavite ring, it was like copper and Moldavite, and it irritated my hands all the time. I just couldn't do it. So it's like, clearly it's the crystal. But this degree, 25 degrees of Cancer, which is where her Jupiter in Cancer is stationed, retrograde, is all about this accepting that you have a level of power and influence, right? It can be difficult sometimes to have that level of power and influence, or accept that you are meant to be seen on a bigger stage than what you might have done growing up. Cancer, with that being the fourth house and the natural sign in that fourth house, is all about the home, protecting your loved ones, protecting what means a lot to you, keeping that kind of like hearth and home space protected with your feminine lunar energy. So it's very much that energy where you are making sure that people don't abuse others. This also is a sign of possibly giving away your power to others. And when you have Jupiter in the sixth house, Jupiter can also represent matrimony, and the way that Jupiter retrograde shows up here, I believe it's more of like a power struggle within daily life, whether it's like to feel at home in your body or to feel at ease in your body. With Gemini ruling over that sixth house, or excuse me, with the moon in Gemini ruling over that sixth house, it's kind of like having a delayed reaction on processing your physical and emotional health sometimes. So, sorry, something rolled off my desk. Um, Sometimes you can kind of see how like the moon and eclipses especially could very much impact her sixth house and her health. But sometimes with a Gemini moon, you just see things a little bit more delayed. Like I, being ruled by a Gemini moon, have problems like processing my emotional and mental. Like I said, it's like if I'm really mad at something, it'll take me a while to figure out that I am. I don't always get it right away. I don't always feel what I'm supposed to feel in the moment. Sometimes it can be like a shock to your system kind of thing, but the truth degree of Cynthia's Jupiter retrograde is guests are reading in the library of a luxurious home. So it's all about building this luxurious home where you can provide coziness and rest for others. And that actually in turn provides health benefits for you, right? Which is crazy to think about, but it's very much a feminine energy where it's like all the people you love are safe and taken care of in one spot. And you know that's where they are, cool. And you can go about feeling safe, secure, and okay in your own body. Um, the solution degree to Cynthia's Jupiter retrograde in the sixth house is represented by the 27th degree of Cancer, which is a violent storm in a residential canyon filled with valuable homes. I wrote this in as turbulence behind closed doors, emotional confrontations, things about emotional health, ways that you relate in a domestic way. It's, thinking that you're in control of something that you have no control over, which is very much weather patterns and the violent storm that it's talking about. But it's talking about how you kind of knew this was coming, right? And there's a lot of pressure building up and there's a lot of stress building up. But one thing that I don't think a lot of people have been talking about as much as I think is necessary, that there's a lot of studies coming out now, and it's no surprise to anyone that's been a woman. So, one second here. This is no surprise to anyone that's been a woman. And I don't need to say that like everyone that's ever been a woman knows what I'm saying with this, but yeah, kind of. Women are absolutely essential to a culture, society, any great nation, right? Women are also totally imperative to a household, a traditional male female relationship. Women provide so much nurture, they provide so much care, so much oomph to everything, right? Women without their needs met and women in survival mode don't get that chance to really be in their feminine, right? They don't get that chance to really be the sensual powerhouse because they're too busy worrying about the light bill, which it's happens all the time. We are in a society that values a lot of independence and success and productivity. So with that comes a lot of people being productive, being independent, being achieving a lot on their own. But there's been a lot of studies that come out that talk about how women especially are going through all these autoimmune conditions, and all these autoimmune conditions are direct results of repressing anger within their bodies, from having to put themselves in positions to make ends meet that they were never prepared to really be in that position, where it's like a sudden situation, or just the environment that is out there for a lot of different cultures, a lot of different places all over the world for women. In the United States, we are incredibly lucky to have a lot of modern advancements. I am very much speaking on the fact that I am an astrologer. And, 100 years ago, I don't really know if I would be openly telling people that. And I don't think my parents would be openly bragging about my astrology book and telling people how proud they are of their witch daughter. I don't think that's the case. And that's just 100 years ago, let alone 200 years ago. So there's so much about what men and women have been through, but women especially going through these conditions where we take on so much and our bodies literally shut down. They can develop seizures, they can develop a literal virus inside of us that they'll just feel like they need to fight something off. There can be so many things that happen to our bodies, and skin disorders from autoimmunes, things that just pile on, and it's from repressing things. So my biggest thing, if you have a moon ruled sixth house, is to work on your emotional core, your emotional center, to ground with the earth instead of fight and say, no, I will wear all the polyester in the world. I'll never take my shoes off. And the only time I will go outside is to spray weed eating solution on my yard. That go for it, right? Like, that's you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not a doctor. I'm not even, college graduate outside of my horse degree. So if you're a horse, I could absolutely help you with your health, especially if you need equine reproduction services. I've got that covered thanks to Colorado State. Shout out to their veterinary medicine school. Incredible. I was lucky enough to attend a couple really, really cool programs there. So I do have some experience in that world, but my college years were absolutely spent doing ridiculous things. I would work, school, party, not necessarily in that order. But enough about that. I think that this kind of chart that I'm seeing here with having a moon ruled sixth house and then having the 12th house ruled by the degree that I know very well because it's the degree of my Mars sign. 19 degrees Capricorn is representing the Sabian symbols by a child about 5 carrying like bags and bags of groceries. And it's very much about having to take on more than you've ever really wanted to. And that is the degree starting off Cynthia's 12th house. So knowing that her moon in Gemini, relationship with her mother, relationship to her family behind closed doors, relationship to herself, the intimate parts and secrets of the self that one keeps, having a Mercury ruled fourth house, Mercury being the in Pisces at 17 degrees, the Leo ruled degree in her first house. That to me shows like a lot of short distance, like walking a lot and traveling to houses by walking a lot, or traveling back and forth by walking, or even with Mercury, like bike riding everywhere can definitely be a thing. With Gemini being the ruler of like short-term travel and siblings and communication with that third house. Like that third house and Gemini are very much associated. If you guys already know this, just ignore me. You already know what I'm talking about. But for those that don't know what I'm saying, I am trying to keep up, or at least like try to help people keep up with what I'm saying. But having a Gemini moon means that you're naturally curious about the world. You also can have a little bit of a hot and cold relationship with people in general, need, 10 to 15 business days to process yourself after a social gathering. It's just a little few tips that I've picked up from being a Gemini moon. But yeah, there's just a lot about what women carry with them. So if you have a moon ruled sixth house, please, please, please know that it is imperative for you to get in touch with your emotions and really know what you're made of and what your moon sign is all about. What I recommend is looking up your moon sign in the Sabian Symbols book, and you can connect with that. My moon sign is at 3 degrees Gemini, and it happens to be the ruler of Cynthia's fourth house. It is very much a kind of like whimsical degree of Gemini. It's the charming court life at the Garden of the Tuileries in Paris. Very much about time to enjoy beauty, order, all of that. So beauty was definitely something that helped Cynthia behind closed doors and also in her private life. Not sure how that plays into it, but maybe she was always like taking photos of other people or capturing photos. Having Gemini placements anywhere, especially ruling your sixth house, meaning that your hands and media and photography and journalism, and of course, yapping, my personal favorite, are all very important. It could be daily routine things like a job that you could turn that into. So, going to her Gemini moon, that is where I immediately went and saw the 21 degrees of Gemini, which is a tumultuous labor demonstration. Being vocal about things that are personal to you is very much a solution to unlock emotional health for Cynthia. Being vocal about things that are close to your heart is very important for her mental health as well. Then going into 22 degrees Gemini, which is the truth degree in the Sabian Symbols method that I use. To Cynthia's moon, it is dancing couples crowd the barn in a harvest festival. This is like Neil Young's Harvest Moon. If I could just play that song without anyone getting mad at me copyright wise, YouTube looking at you, I would, but it's very much about the need to be in tune with seasons. And if you have placements at 22 degrees Gemini and you are living backwards and trying to be out starting things in the middle of winter and then hide during the spring and then, harvest things in uh, the winter. I'm like over here trying to remember the seasons: spring, summer, winter, fall. I have a magazine coming up with spring equinox, so I do know when that's coming out because I have a hard deadline on that one. But knowing that there's so much to do with the living in the seasonal poles and like honoring that. A lot of people don't have that option just given the life that we live in 2025. People are very much built around corporate times and corporate schedules, not so much their own schedules and choices. So you don't always get to just hibernate with winter, right? So that's not always a practical solution. But Gemini 22 degree people should absolutely be retreating with certain seasons and emerging with others and learning those kind of movements. And it's fun to learn your personal timing, especially with astrology. I love it. I think it's great to know when your personal new year is, which is when the sun crosses over your ascendant. Know when it's your like fresh start and your personal actual physical new year ahead starts when the sun crosses over your ascendant and then also returns to the place in your chart where it was when you were born, which is known as your solar return. For Cynthia, when the sun crosses over her ascendant, it's basically time for her birthday. So it's kind of convenient that New Year for her is at the middle of Aquarius season and the beginning of Pisces season. So that's really cool. The solution degree for Cynthia's Gemini moon is 3 fledglings in a nest high up in a tree. Very much about the idea of dependency on others and, knowing that only the strong survive. The fledglings high up in a tree indicates that they are there on their own accord or maybe having to learn how to fly at some point in their journey. And that's part of life, right? It's maybe staying someplace longer than you need to out of fear. That could be the downside of it, and that could be the emotional side of it that shows up in Cynthia's life. With her moon forming a T square with her Chiron, Venus, Saturn in Pisces, and her Pluto and Uranus in Virgo, that is very much, it's her moon in Ceres because Ceres is right there next to her moon. It's all about nurturing mental health, and it's about doing that behind closed doors, doing that however you need to, journaling, breathing. Breath work is huge for Geminis and air risings, of course, too, which she is an Aquarius rising. So being able to breathe into your body and learn to feel safe in your body is going to be huge for Gemini moons. And having that sixth house ruled by the moon, once again, the sixth house of physical health and well-being and daily routine and service to others and, everything else. But it's all about how you are able to transmute that emotional current of having a Gemini moon that's just always rapidly wanting and seeking information, as well as asking questions, needing to know things that people are like, why are you asking me this? This is so like interesting. And also, Gemini moons have a really sharp way with words, I would say. I have been known to insult some people. And that's what I kind of think is funny because, like, on astrology Twitter, I've been very much like this person that wants to collab and share and grow and just teach as much as I can at the same time that I'm learning and shifting my practice and building it at the same time and learning what I'm doing with sports astrology. And I'm just constantly getting people in the mix, whether they want to be or not. Like, let's be real. Some people probably have had me muted since I started going live all the time. I don't really care. This is about who I can help reach and who wants to actually hear this. This is for you guys, not for the haters. There'll always be those, but who cares? But yeah, having a T square with your moon is very much something that can be hard to navigate, can leave you feeling like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, how am I supposed to emotionally evolve when I'm constantly not knowing or truly feeling in real time how I actually feel? That's definitely another main concern of that moon placement and that degree of Gemini. So I think living in more seasons with nature, not necessarily being out in nature, but definitely living more seasonally, shifting, having a Mercury ruled fourth house means that like short distance travel or having a lot of homes is definitely kind of a theme, especially with the moon in Gemini. You're constantly moving places and you're constantly like, not constantly on the go and constantly moving, but you're constantly like shifting and picking up and going and going and going. So I think Cynthia should start a line of designer luggage, and that would be so fitting for all of her energy. I love it so much. Anyways, one thing I want to talk about that I think is really cool with her exalted Venus and Pisces, it's at the degree of people being on their own little island and in their own little world. And truly, when Cynthia's in love with her Chiron and Venus being conjunct, she is learning, shifting, growing in relationships. The people that she falls in love with are always teaching her something. She is always healing something. With Chiron, one thing that you can always do to look and kind of like, and we're not going to dive into it just because obviously we're here to talk about the fun parts of Cynthia's chart, not dive into the parts that obviously astrologers can see and talk about in multifaceted ways. There's always layers when you talk about things in astrology, but the age that something powerful happens to you is usually the same degree of your Chiron. For me, my Chiron's at 23 degrees. And I got pregnant with my daughter when I was 23, had her right after I turned 24. It was a really cool moment. And we actually share some placements because of that transit, and that 23 degrees Gemini is where her Venus is. So it's like we have that. I have 23 degrees Gemini Chiron. She has a 23 degree Gemini Venus retrograde. So I love that synastry aspect. I think it's cool to see Chiron involved in synastry in a positive way. You can talk about the negatives. Yeah, it could make you feel inadequate in relationships. It could make you feel not enough as yourself. That has been something that even in the reel, that the band reel that I played from Bravo, you can even see there how her own daughter was like, hey, do you have high self-esteem? Because why are you messing with these people who clearly don't want to have these conversations that you need to have? So it's like, it's a very powerful thing to have Chiron and Venus conjunct, especially with an exalted Venus. So yes, being beautiful and magnanimous and charismatic and charming comes very easily and naturally to Cynthia. No, is it like all that she's about? there's very much an intensity there, having that 24 degrees being a Pisces degree as well. It's like very much about having this depth and mysticism and psychic connection to your partner and mostly to yourself. Having so many first house placements is all about knowing thyself. It's super important. I know Cynthia is a huge astrology fan, so I'm excited to be able to um, present this to her and show her the breakdown in video form. So it'll be cool to share that. But on top of all of her Pisces energy, there's also quite the buildup of Scorpio energy in her ninth house. And the ninth house is where we can find higher education, these big brain concepts, philosophy, religion, and your higher beliefs, your religious beliefs, if that's the case. Having a Mars ruled ninth house means being on the go and traveling is important to Cynthia. Having that Mars in the eighth house in Scorpio at the Aries degree can kind of feel like there's a lot of under the surface anger, right? I don't think, you have to be a psychic to know that most, powerful and successful women have gone through very angry periods of their life. Women in general, people in general, mammals in general have anger, and whether it's expressed through fighting like animals can do, humans tend to hold it in. And the explosiveness of a Mars in Scorpio is very much a long burning seething anger. So it's like when you finally push them to the point where they're like actually angry. The anger usually shows up in intimacy and partnerships, with a Venus ruled eighth house like Cynthia has. Feeling heard, seen, understood, and appreciated in her relationship is going to be very much key, and feeling appreciated as she is, like someone's not trying to change her or tell her how to live her life. Aries don't like that at all. As an Aries, I can just tell you, don't do that. And as Aries is found at home in the first house in astrology, having all that Pisces energy intercepted in the first house, which is naturally home to Aries, can feel very much like this delusional yet rage of a thousand suns that you don't know like where it's coming from. And it could be like you could gaslight yourself very easily and be like, I think I'm just overreacting. That could be very much a thing that people with Pisces in the first house have to kind of work through, is like trusting their gut, trusting their instinct, and trusting themselves to like actually, be right about that. Um, Another thing with the Mars in Scorpio, sexuality is very much a huge part of Cynthia's life, and having Mars ruling over her second house as well as her ninth house is all about her values and her financial and physical resources in life, and is very much driven by collecting those, having big contracts in life where you sign, whether it's prenups, contracts like modeling agreements or representation agreements, or when you do any sort of arts or creative projects, like what you sign on the dotted line, or real estate. All of these things can be a theme of the eighth house. I like to call the eighth house a house of other people's property. Also, OPP can stand for many things. You can figure that one out. I'm not going to break down all that for you. Excuse me. So, with that being said, Mars ruling over the second and the ninth house is something along the lines of your anger can motivate you and drive you to your success. And it can also be something that you just flee from. Like the ninth house is very much like take a trip, take a flight, I'm out. Having your South Node, Vesta, and Neptune in the ninth house, spirituality can kind of be something that you grow into, that you nurture once you get past the skepticism, or once you get past the, well, if there is a God, why did X, Y, and Z happen to me? It can be very much like that. Having a Scorpio ruled ninth house means that you are constantly questioning and researching your beliefs and going to a higher, like understanding of them. Having, Scorpio ruled ninth house means like the intense conversations are going to be what really leads to a higher heartfelt connection. Having Mercury in Pisces, especially in the first house, having deep conversations about oneself or one's beliefs and sharing that with others can be very much a healing part of Cynthia's life too. So that school that I know, the modeling school, and kind of like the finishing school of sorts, the creative school that Cynthia was doing, definitely is something that would be very important for her. But I see it more as like creating something that's like a transformation of sorts, whether it's like transform yourself with Cynthia, and kind of like she finds her spiritual kind of like sweet spot, and she's in a spot where she wants to help others transform their lives. That could very much be where she's at now too, with Neptune trine her Neptune. Neptune trine Neptune can be a very dreamy and spiritually supportive type of situation. This is very much conducive for psychedelics. If anyone is, looking for a reason to do psychedelics in the woods, I'm always looking for a reason. Let's go. But another thing that I wanted to talk about, speaking of woods, right? We have not talked about Cynthia's North Node. And that is because with a second Saturn return going on, that's always incredibly fascinating. Talking about her other aspects where we have Jupiter slowly joining her moon and then going into her fifth house. She's going to have a huge burst of creative energy this year. And whether it's because she's in love, whether it's because she's got a lover, which, Jupiter going in your fifth house is very much lover energy and loved up energy. A lot of abundance with children as well. So even possibilities of her children finding success during this or finding their creative flow. Having a Mercury ruled fifth house is mean like you constantly have to speak things into existence and journal about it and daydream about it and fantasize about it if that's what you want to do, and with Pisces being where her Mercury is, having those daydreams and having those moments where you're like, oh my God, that'd be so cool to have this. It could happen. It could just happen overnight. These things, like Pisces season in general, combined with having so much natal Pisces energy. I know Pisces season is wrapping up, but as Jupiter gets closer and closer to shifting into Cancer, that will be happening in her fifth house for quite some time. So I'm looking forward to that for Cynthia. It's going to be a lot of creative bursts and energy as well. Jupiter will also be making its way to her Jupiter return spot, where, yes, her Jupiter is natally retrograde, and it might be a little bit before Jupiter gets there, which is okay. But there's just so much about what's coming up for Cynthia that I feel like is going to be just next level. I'm not sure if she already has any like grandkids or anything like that, but maybe with Jupiter and Cancer in the fifth house later on in her sixth house return of Jupiter, she could maybe find out she's a grandma. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But it's really cool to see. And Jupiter will also be trine her Mars. So that could be another venture where she signs up and has a contract for something new and exciting there. As well as it's going to be like a grand water trine with her Chiron, Venus, Saturn, Neptune, and then her Jupiter retrograde. So it's going to be a really kind of like dreamy, whimsical time the rest of the year for Cynthia, as well as with that Neptune going from her first house into her second house. I feel like the lucrativeness of her flow state that came with the Saturn return is now pushing into her second house, and it's like lighting a new realm or advancement in her second house, where it could be a new business venture, a new partnership, a new industry that she's pioneering in it. You never know when Neptune is in Aries in the second house. You could have so many pivots, so many changes. You could inherit all sorts of things, absolutely, with that second house and eighth house axis. Themes around where the North Node was, now that the North Node is in her first house and hitting all of her Pisces placements, we could see Neptune going through her second house as themes of what happened during that nodal um, visit from the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra. So very much looking forward to that and looking forward to seeing those things. But yeah, the one thing I wanted to pull up was Cynthia's astrocartography over in Europe, just because I found it really fascinating. Her moon line goes right through Madrid, which I think is cool. And so does her Ceres line, because obviously her Ceres and her moon are conjunct in Gemini. Her Mercury line goes through Budapest and Sarajevo, and also up through Stockholm, Sweden. And then her Chiron line goes through Athens, Greece, which I thought was really, really cool. And then her her Venus line goes through Bucharest. And then I can't zoom in on this, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I can't zoom in on that. And it's also blocked by some of that. So I'm not on the AstroGold software. I'm just using a screenshot. But very cool. Her ascendant goes through Casablanca. Love that, as well as Lisbon, and then up in Ireland. So I love that her boo is from Amsterdam and her sun line is very close to there, as well as Brussels, Paris, and Barcelona. So Cynthia, if you have not spent a bunch of time in Europe recently, spend as much as you can over there. You have absolutely beautiful astrocartography to support it, as well as over in Africa. And, I can pull up the United States as well, but I did send that in the report to Cynthia. So we are now in the stage of Midwest weather, where it goes from snowstorm to 74 degrees out in the same week. So I think my body's just catching up with all of it. So excuse me, bless me, however you want to look at that. I had to sneeze. Now you know what I look like when I sneeze. Congrats. So with that being said, looking at a little bit of her chart definitely gave me a new appreciation for Cynthia's journey in life, Cynthia's story, as well as her openness and vulnerability that she shares on the Real Housewives of Atlanta with her relationship, as well as just everything that her relationships and everything that she has gone through to get there, as well as her sexual side, which is not something that women later in life get to share very often, especially on network television. And having the Real Housewives be just such a beacon of fun and positivity, and knowing that like at any age and any stage you can do things that are not age appropriate. And I think that's a really cool part of this whole journey with the housewives, is like how much they can do. But going back to Cynthia's North Node in Taurus, I do know that that's what I was originally going to sign off with, and then I just kept yapping because my Gemini Moon does that. One thing that I thought was really cool is that Cynthia's North Node in Taurus is represented by the 9 degrees. The karmic degree is the 9 degrees Taurus, and that is represented in the Sabian Symbols by a Christmas tree is decorated and shines in the darkness. And I thought this was really beautiful just because of the story of the poverty Cynthia shared when growing up, and the fact that her and her sister didn't have very much growing up. And so Christmas was sparse and things were maybe not the best, nicest, or newest. And part of the housewives, like some of their stories can share how they might have not come from money, but they married it, or they found it, or they built it themselves. And it's just interesting to see how wealth can accumulate for different people. And yes, Taurus is all about wealth, luxury, bouginess, but it's also about being comfortable and feeling, safe in one's body, the coziness of one's own body, and sensuality, right? But to provide Christmas for other people usually means that you have to be quite a bright light yourself. And I feel like the karmic degree of Cynthia's North Node is all about being a bright light for others in maybe some not so great times, and being there for people that might need that extra, encouragement. and doing so in a way that helps their mental health, with her North Node in the third house, which is, traditionally the home of Gemini, and where we find a lot of care. So the truth degree to Cynthia's North Node in Taurus is a Red Cross nurse with warm sympathy. And that is the true degree to her North Node. And that's all. The North Node is all about your point of destiny and like what you're meant to be doing in this life. At 9 degrees, that is a Sagittarius rule degree. The 10 degrees is Capricorn rule degree. So it's like this reliable and caring, nurturing feeling that Taurus does provide. Taurus energy does provide nurture and care. It does maybe come with some resentment if they have to take care of you for too long, when they really just want to take care of themselves, and that's okay. But it's all about learning sympathy for others and learning that caring for others is something that can kind of come with, like, I don't want to say caring for others is next to godliness, because that's cleanliness, as we know. But caring for others and showing empathy and sympathy for others and nursing them back to health can kind of be like a theme with this. It's looking after people's emotional, mental, physical needs, which, with that being in the third house, I feel like it's more of like a mental thing, and knowing what can help people mentally is going to be a huge part of her purpose in life. The solution degree for her North Node in Taurus is a woman sprinkling long rows of flowers. So all about beautifying the spaces around you through plants, gardening, and, creating new life. And whether it's, helping things take shape in the physical form, nurturing a mindset with this North Node being in the third house of mental health, communication, short distance travel, lower education, like elementary education, siblings, friendships, childhood. The third house is so diverse and amazing. I really love how she is helping women and really everyone with her podcast with Crystal. I love the vibes. I love the back and forth. I love the banter. When you have a North Node in the third house, yapping is completely part of your life and future. You cannot get away from it. It is absolutely something that will be a main theme. So being able to talk, and the throat is ruled by Taurus. Being able to talk and share things with your voice and vocalize your thoughts and feelings and vocalize your mindset and share those things that are on your mind and share the things that you have in your head. That is very much her purpose in this lifetime, as well as her purpose in this lifetime being beautiful on camera. Like, I just can't stress enough, like, third house placements are the artists, creators, photographers. They're the ones being photographed. Like, they have so much life. They have so much conversation. They have so much youth. They have so much energy for all their passion projects. It's like, it's probably one of the most beautiful houses, in my opinion. I have my South Node and part of Fortune there. And it can definitely be something where I'm like, I'm neurotic, but it's like, no, this is just having Virgo in your third house. But with having Taurus in your third house, sometimes your mindsets can be rigid. You don't like to be wrong. You don't like to be, you're not going to admit that you're wrong ever. And when you do, it's like, yeah, I'm sorry that you feel that you're right and that I'm not right, but that's on you. That's your opinion. That's very much the vibes. So yeah, I just love seeing when a Venus ruled North Node and a Venus is exalted in Chiron, and you're able to get to the root of a lot of questions and problems and topics within your own path. It's like her journey is being shared and talked about through this podcast. Her legacy is very much being felt by the more that she shares, her journey in the behind the scenes of everything, because her ninth house, of course, the ninth house is where you find Sagittarius like energy, but having South Node, Vesta, and Neptune in the ninth house, it's very much about expanding your comfort zones. And with her MC at the 2 men playing chess degree of Sagittarius, which is 3 degrees, owls are going to be a huge sign of she's on the right track or family ancestor. So I'd mentioned that in the reading that I gave Cynthia, is that owls have a lot of significance, and that are signs from family members that have passed away. So owls and their significance, but having your MC at the 3 degrees of Sagittarius, that's two men playing a game of chess. You're not here to play games. You are the game. You set the rules, you set the tone, you move around how you need to. But it's all about knowing that you're this ever expansive and eternal human being. So having her Jupiter rule over her 10th house and having her Jupiter station retrograde in the 6th house, ruled by her moon in Gemini, ruled by her Mercury in Pisces, which is right back to being ruled by Jupiter in Cancer station retrograde, which is right back to being ruled by the moon. So it just goes in that cycle. Astrologers could talk in circles for days about a chart. We could go over all of it. But the one thing that I want to say is that Cynthia Bailey is aging like fine wine. She is only getting better and stronger the more she goes through life and completes her journeys around the sun here on this planet. So I would just like to say a huge thank you to Cynthia to letting me read her chart, and allowing me to have the chance to do so and share it with all of you. So I appreciate when people aren't afraid to share their charts. And that's something that I want to, I would say, like, not normalize, because I don't like it when people are like, normalize doing this. It's like, just do it and shut up about it. And then maybe it'll be normal, but who wants to be normal? Ew. That is like my Sun square Uranus and Saturn nightmares being normal or fitting in. Ugh. The even thought of that sounds terrible. That's why I'm like totally okay doing my own little like thing and like isolated little shows and being in my bubble as an astrologer. It's like I am so content researching like all the things in the world and sharing my research with all of you and sharing my process with you. And if you haven't worked with me already and don't know what I do, you know, there's only going to be more ways to work with me in 2025. There's only going to be more guidebooks coming out with my astrology journey. I am 5 years in to being a professional astrologer. I am so excited that I'm able to do this. I have been an astrologer by hobby since like 2018. And before that, I didn't know more than my sun sign, and then I had like found out about cusp around like 2009. So it's like I've been on this journey where I've always just been looking up at the stars and looking for answers outside of myself, because as a kid from Kansas, it's like, is there more to the world out there? And I got to see so much of it when I was a kid, and I got to travel to all these beautiful places, and I look forward to be able to take my own kids on these mystical adventures as well. And so much of that comes from knowing that the world is not a scary place and knowing that this world is working in your favor. And I cannot stress enough, and I mean this, I cannot stress enough how much this book, the guidebook to the goddess, is here to help explain a lot of the things that maybe your church upbringing didn't explain about how there's this other supportive energy. Like if you know yin and yang, right? We know the black and the white with the little dot symbol. That's a yin and yang symbol. It's so important to know that to everything there's a counterpart, and to everything that you know about there is an equal opposite, an equal and opposite to that. So in astrology, the opposite to Aries is Libra. In batteries, the opposite of negative ions is the positive ions, and they work together to form a battery and a circuit. There's so many things about what's opposite of us being able to teach us and help us share and understand, you know, other people's lives. And when I watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, it's completely different than watching Real Housewives of New York. When I watch Real Housewives of New York, it's completely different than watching the Real Housewives of Salt Lake. It's like every single one is this unique storyline, and it has such a powerful and profound impact on culture to be able to see women whether they're messy, whether they are sharing too much that you're not comfortable with, whether they are being too much, or whether you feel as though their attitudes aren't fitting the situation or the circumstances, that's not up to you, right? Like, this is their truth. This is what they share with us, and we are lucky to witness it all. So I am super amazing at being able to see things from like a big zoomed out perspective, just because I have ninth house Mercury that kind of helps me see some things. And I can tell you that this book is going to be a big, big smash, and it's going to be one that helps people for years to come find out about the goddess and the lost story of Sophia, Gaia, Sophia, that is always around us and that turned her body that fell from the imperfect place, or fell in an imperfect way from this perfect place that she was occupying, turned it into the earth so we can know that it's okay to be imperfect too. And that is where I would like to wrap things up. If you are unfamiliar with my work, you don't know that I have a book that I launched on top of my quarterly free magazine. The other copies are right there. They're right over there behind me. The other seasonal copies. The new copy is coming out on March 20th. It'll be available for download on northernastrology.com. What's this image? Oh, yeah, there it is. My book is available. Our book is available. Absolutely available instantly on Kindle. It's also available instantly on northernastrology.com. But we are restocking the paperback and the hardcover copies on Amazon while we relaunch all of our other things with Barnes and Noble. So we will be having this book in over 40,000 different places online to purchase, as well as having some exclusive events in store that we are excited to share as well. So that will be coming up. Oh yeah, I get to reveal who my next housewife is. I almost forgot I got to do that. So recently, while this housewife was in Marrakesh, just chatting it up with me on a party bus, she let me know what time she was born. And it was one of those situations where I was like, Aries, we need an Aries for the next one. And this next episode will be done in April because this next housewife was born in April. It is the one and only Margaret Josephs of the Real Housewives of New Jersey. I am so looking forward to covering a fellow Aries and someone that's a little bit of a shit starter and shit finisher like I am, somebody with a little bit of oomph. Not saying that Cynthia Bailey doesn't have the oomphs. Cynthia Bailey has the pizzazz, the charm, the grace, and also the comical side absolutely covered. And I think the ladies of New Jersey have been like fighting for so long that I would like to see more of them at peace and like doing other things. So Margaret is going to be an amazing profile. I'm super looking forward to that. And I look forward to bringing more things to you with not only my magazine on March 20th, we have Mariah's book launching with Ninth House Publishing on Friday with the eclipse in Virgo at 23 degrees. The goddess is coming back, ladies and gentlemen, in a short, consumable fashion that will not hurt your head or your wallet. You are able to carry this around wherever you go. It has pictures. It's incredible. I'm not going to show you too much. It's not my place. The queen of this book and the debut author, Mariah Gutta, will be explaining it all for you guys on her video coming out. So I'm just lucky enough to be the publisher and to be able to see the behind the scenes part. And then also, if you guys needed to see the hard copy, dropped something. The hard copy of my book, as well as my very special bookmark from my grandma. Our paperback copy is right there. So we have so many things coming up. By we, I mean all the people that I work with and myself. and all the different things that we have coming up are so helpful, so powerful, and so needed. So if you are looking to share your voice and share your thoughts, share your theories, share your ideas, share your words, whatever it is you have to share, whether it's astrology based, whether it's spiritual based, whether it's a mixture of both, please, please, please reach out to Ninth House Publishing. You can go to ninthhouse.org. Yes, ninthhouse.org to reach out to us. So my name is Gracey with Northern Astrology. This has been an astrological profile of the one and only Queen of Atlanta, Miss Cynthia Bailey from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I will be back with the astrological profile of Margaret Josephs in April. And with that, I will see you then. Have a great one, you guys.